Hello, everybody. I'm back. I have an interesting post that I found about launch, promo, and abandon. And I had never heard of this. I've never heard of this. I don't know if you call it an acronym, LPA. But this is prevalent in Google, where they launch a product, the person gets the promo. So not I thought it was like promo as in like you're promoting it, the software or the product. And then it's abandoned. And the interesting thing is that it seems like Google employees are incentivized to adopt this model or this mindset. And I think it's fairly prevalent. I think it's relevant to people in the no-code community as well, because I think we've kind of like by extension adopted this launch, promo, and abandon philosophy. And naturally, like when Google is the leader, one of the leaders in the tech space, like that has an effect and an influence on people to adopt what they do, even if the practice is not necessarily good. So this is the post. It's a Reddit comment on why so many Google products get shut down. Internally, we call it the LPA cycle: launch, promo, and abandon. So let's break this down a little bit and see like what's happening here, even if it's not true, right? Because it is a Reddit comment. So let's be mindful that this may not be completely accurate. But even if it's not, I think it's still worth discussing because it is a romanticization of the launch, which I think is something that needs to go away. All right, to understand that, you have to understand how Google works. The career progression and promotion at Google is based on move the needle, aka launches. So they're equating right off the bat, they're equating moving the needle, like making some kind of fundamental change with launching a product, which is an assumption. It doesn't, just because a product is launched doesn't mean that you've moved the needle. I think that's launching. I don't know if is a metric of change. I don't think those two things are the same. You launch a service or major overhaul, and you put it in your promo package. Now, in this context, I think when they say promo package, they're talking about like a job promotion, like you're being promoted within Google. So not promotional in the sense of like promoting a new product or an application. They're incentivized to add a launch to their promo package because it will advance their career progression within Google internally. No one ever fucking gets promoted for maintaining or fixing something broken. See, like that's kind of important. Or iterating on, something that was launched, right? Like that's not incentivized. It's just the launch. Once you get up and until the launch, that's it. You've done your job. When something like Stadia or any other service launches, you will always see an immediate slowdown in development and features. I'm not sure what Stadia is. It is because all experienced and ambitious engineers leave the project very shortly after the launch. So it sounds like after the launch, the product or whatever Google is putting out gets deprioritized. And it's just like, all right, we got it out. On to the next launch. Instead of seeing whether what they launched is worthwhile and solves somebody's problem and has some type of product market fit. And you can think of product market fit in the same context as anything else. Even if it's an internal tool that's only going to be used by Google employees, you still have to find out whether or not this tool is useful for anybody, and are they adopting it? If not, then wouldn't you want to know why? Like, why did you put, development resources into building something that you're just going to abandon and not really learn anything about, or not continue with it? Seems like a waste of time. You will always see an immediate slowdown in development of features. It is because all experience, sorry, I read that part. Because there is no promo food to get anymore. So they leave for a new project team where they can get more credits towards promo. So I guess it seems like there's some kind of credit system within Google for promotion. You need to earn a certain amount of credits before you can be promoted. The people that remain are those that cannot easily transfer teams, inexperienced, or just sometimes poor engineers. You see this all the time with Google products, rapid development and activity until the launch, and then everything grinds to a halt. I told you above why that is a thing. When I worked with Google in 2012, internally we called it the LPA cycle, launch, promo, abandon. Yes, that is how we described it internally at Google at the time. Now, why do I think this is important? Because, like I said before, it does a few things. This mentality does a few things. First off, I think this mentality is prevalent when you have development resources. So if you yourself develop in Bubble or no code, it's very easy to jump projects. And we do this quite often. I do it myself, right? I'm not above this. I'm just pointing out that it's kind of a prevalent thing that people do. And I don't think it makes for good long-term solutions to problems. I don't mean to say that you have to stay on a project forever if it's not going the way that you would expect it, or it's going in the direction that you didn't kind of sign up for. Fine. You're not locked into anything. It's your dream. It's your destiny. But there is something to be said about not continuing after you've launched your product, or feeling like the launch is like the end. Launch is it's the first step. It's the first step. You could argue that the build is the first step, or speccing things out is the first step, but building for the sake of building is not helpful to anybody. What you're building has to have some usability. Like, you have to be able to or people have to benefit from what you're building in some way. Now, with now Google being who they are and such, a strong influence on the world, if they adopt this mentality, then I think that has a strong effect on people who are putting products out into the world as well. Because why would you not emulate one of the most successful companies in the world? Right? Like, this is the way that Google does it. But is that are we setting the right expectations for newer founders who are just starting out, or just people who are putting out a product for the first time, to launch, promote something, and then abandon it? I don't think so. It also romanticizes, like I said before, it also romanticizes this idea of the launch, which is really just step one. Launching is step one, or maybe step two. Maybe build is step one, launch is step two. But it's like you didn't do anything yet if you've launched. It's almost like I look at like raising VC money in the same way as, like, you think about, like, you got VC money as a success, and maybe in certain cases that is a milestone. But that like, just because someone gave you were able to convince someone to give you money doesn't mean you built a useful product yet. You don't know yet. Sometimes that's the case. If you've already got a user base and then you've raised money, awesome, because that, hopefully will speed up your growth and development and all that. But as a first step, no, it can't. Raising money and and launching are potential milestones in a much bigger process of learning about your customers. See what else they're saying here. One of the perks of no longer working at big tech and having no plans to go back, I can write very honestly about some of the negative stuff I've seen. Stuff I would definitely not write about in public if I was still a manager at Uber. Ooh, interesting. Let's see what this is about. Promotions of big tech. Promotion-driven development is an unfortunate but very real consequence of the impact-driven nature of promotions and performance reviews at big tech. With each level, your work is expected to impact larger groups and drive bigger business outcomes. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Like, your work should be impacting larger group and driving bigger bigger business outcomes. That makes sense. How can you impact a large group of engineers and drive a major business outcome? A large group of and drive a major. The obvious answer is to solve an engineering problem the organization has. Yes, 100%. I agree with that fully. However, to get promoted, the impact is not enough. You need to perform at the next level of the how competencies as well. In practice, this means building something non-trivial that involves coordination of large groups and is a difficult engineering challenge. So what's being said here? I understand this first line. How can you impact a large group of engineers and drive a major business outcome? The obvious answer is to solve an engineering problem the organization has. However, the to get promoted, the what impact is not enough. You need to perform at the next level of how. Comedies as well. In practice, this means building something non-trivial that involves coordination of large groups and is a difficult engineering challenge. I don't see. I'm still not quite understanding the point, but maybe we'll learn that. This is exactly why instead of using an existing third-party framework for an organization-wide issue, engineers working towards staff promotions will write down their own in-house solution. That's cool. I think that's cool. As justification, they will find edge cases where existing solutions do not work well, and they'll go ahead and execute this complex, impactful, and promotion-worthy project. Oh, okay. I see where this is going. Though at times building custom tooling is justified by unique needs, there is little to no incentive for any engineer to go with an off-the-shelf vendor solution that solves the problem. All right, so like if the off-the-shelf solution solves 90% of the use cases, but there's an additional 10% that edge cases that the solution doesn't solve the problem for, it sounds like they're more inclined to build something custom for that 10%. And I suppose the argument here as well is that really worth people's time and money, especially if they're doing it just to get promoted. The approach would be labeling as trivial and would not meet the complexity expectations of the software engineering and architecture design competencies demand at senior levels and above. This is one reason why all of big tech will have built custom solutions for everything, from developer tools to observability tools to in-house chat systems. I'm not exaggerating. For example, Uber built and operated its own chat system called UChat for years before finally moving over to Slack. Okay, so like if you have, I think this is like if you have the ability and the resources to build software, it's fun to build custom solutions to everything. I think that's really what this comes down to. It's fun, and it seems like in major tech companies, it's incentivized. They probably look at it like, oh, well, this is this encourages creativity from our employees. Um, and there may be something useful that comes out of it in the end, which is not doesn't sound bad on paper, but I agree that it's a lot of building for the sake of building, right? And maybe that's what they want to encourage, but is it or is anything how what's the percentage of useful software that is coming out of those incentives versus ones that just get abandoned? Now, my own personal experience with um, Google, I guess you could say, as far as being a end user of a product that was mostly abandoned, is AppSheet. Not abandoned. I wouldn't call it a completely abandoned. I think my disappointment there, AppSheet is kind of it's a great no code tool for creating math calculations. If you want your app to almost work like an Excel spreadsheet, AppSheet is really good at that. And you can build some very complex math expressions with the way that they set up their their expression builders. Now it's quite difficult to do that with a solution like Bubble. For any high level complex math, you probably are going to need something that's not Bubble native. So me and my client slash friend at the time, we looked at AppSheet as a solution to this financial app that we were building, and I wouldn't say that I still think it was the right decision to go with AppSheet at the time with the information that we had. Um, where it got disappointing is the level of support that didn't happen after they were acquired by Google. AppSheet always kind of had a bit of a lackluster support community, internal support. The community was fairly strong. There was a bunch of enthusiastic AppSheet users. I'd say quite a big community. And it was it was good to be able to lean on each other in the same way that the Bubble community does. But the responses that you would get from the AppSheet, like internal ones, so when there was a bug, for example, those were frustrating. It was more it was more stating like they would just kind of the equivalent would be like when you call your internet provider and they ask you like, oh, well, did you unplug and replug your router in? Like the solutions were very low effort to a problem that you were having or a bug that you had encountered. And then when you did report a bug, it would pretty much get ignored I mean, there's still features that we were talking about a new charting system years ago. And so the reason I bring up AppSheet is because AppSheet got acquired by Google, and we kind of thought that was going to be the solution to all of our problems because it's Google, right? Like, why wouldn't they make improvements to this no code platform that they probably put a pretty sizable investment into? But nothing changed. It was the same. So there really wasn't much of a it was the same. I don't know if they changed the team up or whatever it was, but it was um it was just not it didn't seem like there was any improvements being made after Google had purchased AppSheet. So I don't know what like the purpose of the acquisition really was. If they were just going to keep everything the same, I didn't see those improvements. Now I haven't used AppSheet, and I want to say going on 6 months or so. I haven't really looked at it, so maybe there have been some changes since then. But I can tell you that it really, like Google taking it over, didn't really make any significant changes to it, to the product overall. So it seemed like they bought it, they promoted that they bought it, and they got rid of their Google App Maker, which was their kind of internal no-code platform at the time, and then they abandoned it. And that's just the impression that I got. So that's kind of been my experience on this topic too. My own personal experience with it. Stadia was a problem. I believe consumers weren't that interested in such gaming experience. Let's see what else people are saying here. Stadia's problem is that most consumers looked at it, assumed Google would kill it prematurely, and decided not to invest any money in it. Google's reputation is self-fulfilling now. So, I mean, that's interesting. You will get that um that reputation if that's the way that you treat your products, and the end users of that product are going to lose faith in anything that is not supported. Yeah, as a punter who enjoys Stadia, I'm not sure. I want to see what Stadia is. I've never heard of Stadia. Stadia. One place for all the ways we play. Play free games with Stadia Pro. So is this a Google product? Let's see. It seems like it is. Google Stadia. Google is a cloud gaming service developed and operated by Google. It is accessible through. Is this Google's like? Is this Google's version of like Xbox? Google released an iOS browser. I've never even heard of this. Interesting. Okay. Stadia games were mostly full price, never portable. They keep calling out Stadia as the example. Oh, look at Stewie. My other point was that all digital games to the sponsor revolt. Yeah, but I guess I'm not too interested in the Stadia part. But I do want to see like what else people are saying about this as a philosophy and kind of a practice at Google. Let's see what else. Reddit comments on why so many Google products get shut down. Internally, we call it the LPA cycle. They should open source it, let others maintain it, and expand the code. That's an interesting prospect. Instead of shutting it down and ignoring it, open source it so that people who are actually interested in developing the product, they have access to do that. That'd be kind of cool. Seems like they do support projects that work. Speaking of open sourcing things, Bubble just did this as well. I actually want to pull up another article, maybe take a quick look at this. Bubble donates $20K to open source projects. In our first startup's first annual open source donation, we share why our company decided to contribute to open source software, PLB8, Node, Postgres, and Papa Parse. Bubble's mission is to make technology more accessible for everyone. In pursuit of that goal, we made Bubble a no-code solution that enables anyone to build web apps, whether they know how to code or not. The Bubble platform itself, however, exists because of code written by our stellar engineering team. They code so you don't have to. But even our engineers are not doing it alone. Open source project software that developers share for others to use under public licenses are an integral part of our tech stack. Open source project software and that developers share for others to use under public licenses are integral part of our tech stack. I think they're talking about plugins here. Aren't they just saying, isn't that plugins? Aren't plugins like developers that put their plugin out there under specific licenses, which has become like, like someone said that Bubble is complete because of plugins. And that is very true. Open source software has a direct impact on Bubble. I actually think that plugins are what differentiates Bubble from other no-code platforms is that you can write your own plugins if you need them. and the library is pretty big and a lot. Not I haven't seen any other solutions, no code solutions that do it at this level. So this was a smart decision by Bubble to kind of open source the plugin development for their platform, as well as countless other products and platforms. We greatly appreciate the developers who contribute their work to the world in a service of the same mission, making technology more accessible. Yeah, me too. I appreciate that too. Since open sourcing projects are available for anyone to use for free, the open source ecosystem mostly relies on corporate funding, and smaller projects can struggle to get the resources they need to dedicate time to maintaining projects. Centuries head of open source Chad Whitaker estimated in 2017 that $2,000 per engineer was an appropriate cost for the use of open source software, but it's not clear how many companies pay for open source software or pay for it all. Transparency around the donation amounts is fairly rare. I'm not really sure what context it is here. Like, does this mean that Bubble is paying for people to develop open source software for them? I don't think so, but I'm not really sure what they're explaining here. We were inspired by Century, who wrote last year about their donations and why open source is important to them, to start paying it forward ourselves and contribute to a more transparent ecosystem. That's why this year Bubble committed a total of $20,000 in donations to the following open source projects: PLV8 8000, Node Postgres, and Papa Parse. What is Papa Parse? Takes you to a GitHub account. A little about why we choose each of these projects. PL48 is a wrapper that allows us to write code for our database in JavaScript instead of having to use Postgres procedural language, ultimately making our database code much easier to maintain. Okay, so they're open sourcing. It seems like they're allowing, I'm still not sure. Node Postgres has also been an integral part of Bubble Stack for over 7 years, and it's been primarily maintained for over a decade by a single author. Node Postgres allows us to maintain fine-tuned control over our databases and is frequently updated to keep pace with the changing the both Postgres. Papa Parse helps us parse CSV files by separating out each line, recognizing delimiters, and keeping quoted strings on a single field text. Papa Parse is optimized for performance to parse files as fast as possible. Being able to efficiently and quickly process these files is important to us, making onboarding to Bubble simpler for users who use manual spreadsheets or migrating data from a different platform. This is just the beginning of our commitment to supporting open source software. We're committing to a yearly donation in support of open source projects. Okay, so it sounds like, I think what's happening here is they're contributing to these open source projects that don't only directly benefit Bubble. Right, that's what I'm getting from reading this. It's an open source project that can benefit Bubble, and Bubble is incentivizing the open source projects to develop in these three areas: Node, Postgres, PLV8, and Papa Parse, because it probably will have some direct effect on the Bubble as a platform. This is just the beginning of our commitment to support open source software. We're committing to a yearly donation in support of open source projects, especially projects that we use to help Bubble. Every year, our engineering team will collectively nominate projects that we think we should support, and our total donation amount will grow. We hope sharing our donations encourages others to do the same. We're all excited to do our part and keep helping open source software accessible to all. Cool. All right, so that's a little bit on open source. I agree. Experienced the same thing with Flutter. Google called it a programming language that runs everywhere. 4 years since its launch, and Flutter Web still doesn't work. I believe the project was abandoned alongside Fuchsia OS. I've heard good things about Flutter, though. Aren't people using Flutter? I know the perf team quite intimately. Google have just overhauled perf to incentivize long-term value and de-incentivize this behavior. All right, so these are the incentives we're talking about here. But I also, as an engineer, can tell you that building and launching a new product is a lot of fun. Yes, it is. While maintaining and improving existing product is just work. Yeah. Yeah, but that's how products become great, don't they? Like, products become great because of the maintaining and improving them over a long period of time. Yes, it's not as sexy as putting out a new solution to a problem, but new solutions come and go, or a dime a dozen. And good engineers who have leverage will generally get to pick what projects they work on, and they will pick fun. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. There are so many firms using Kubernetes, I don't know what that is, for container orchestration is going to be fun. People trying to move their apps out of this thing when Google abandons it. Setting it, they really do have a reputation, I guess. Yeah, and these are the products that they're listing here I've never even heard of. K8, Stadia seems like it's a big one, but I've never heard anybody mention Google Stadia. Their economy is competitive because that's literally the most complex process they can model efficiently. It is well known. I worked there many years ago. Our director specifically called out something. It keeps investment towards innovation and away from cost centers. If a newly launched product becomes successful, we'll notice and put people back on it. Yeah, but how does a newly launched product become successful if no one's paying attention to it? Would be my question. On my promo packet to senior, I was explicitly called out by a director that provided feedback to me that Igor worked on the project, launched it, and kept working to improve it. This is really good, but unusual because most people leave after the launch. Damn. Damn, Google. I have a question. I know nothing about engineering or coding in general, but it's crazy to me how people work their entire life jumping from project to project. Why can't companies, especially big tech, keep their employees longer? Sorry if I sound stupid. You don't sound stupid. I like you, round one. Because lineup must go, incentives, promos, raises are aligned with produce more value, which usually means more features. Launches are a culmination of that. Are they though? After launch, there's a lot of incremental work which is not typically promo worthy. Why not make the incentives more around like number of people that are actively using the product? Why just the launch? You would think that like adoption of the solution that people are building would be the incentive to promote people on, not just a launch. But what about the incremental work that is need to keep certain product alive? And so at the end of the day, keep the line going up. Don't they need to fix the actual product first or maybe invest more time before it becomes somewhat sustainable? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, round one. I like you. I want to follow you. I published a whole book on Google Plus for businesses. They killed it. And they killed it right after I sold a ton of copies. Oh, that sucks. This dude wrote a whole book around Google Plus, and then they killed it. What didn't they do the same to you with Wave? Is Wave a Google product? No way. I don't know what Wave is. To me, the cost of bureaucracy, once a company gets big enough, the layered promotion process ends, gets back on milestones where are just targets and can be abandoned once reached. The government does this stuff all the time, but people like to act private. Let's see what this white comment. No, I'll never forgive Google for discontinuing Picasa. See what this is about. I'm a Googler. am a Googler, and I can easily tell you that this shit keeps happening. Google featureless 0 penalties for fucking shit up. 0. Do you know what the people who wasted 2 years on Allo got after it was canned? Nothing. Some of them actually got promoted. Google greatly encourages launches, releasing something publicly. Keep in mind, no penalties if the shit is half-baked, not working, only works on Chrome or some such nonsense. This is the norm. Why promotion? You can't get promoted beyond a certain level in this place unless you launch something big. So what you do, what do you get when you add all of these 100 perverse incentives? 9,883 chat apps. It's funny. The dude in the last post too about that worked at Uber, he said the same thing. He was like, "Yeah, we were using an internal U chat or U chat before they adopted Slack, which was a better solution to their internal and never-ending chain of redesigns and relaunches so some people can get promoted." Jesus. Do you know how many bugs you need to fix to get promoted? Infinity. No matter how many you fix, it will never get you enough to impact for promotion. Never. How many useless redesigns do you need to launch to get promoted? 1. I'm glad this is not the case in the no code community. This is it seems like it's just human, or it's just the way that we're doing things. Extra fun. People internally usually warn us about this shit, complain about it, file bugs about shitty performance. It is all ignored. Most people who have been here for over a few years have given up filing bugs even, because the reply is always the same. You're not the target audience. Oh, wow. Good to know. And we all know it. We all do. Some quit when they realize that others just begin optimizing for promotion as opposed to optimizing what is good for the user or the company. And this is how you get new Gmail, for example. Edit, replace underscores with proper profanity as been requested. Okay. So this is a problem, it seems. Not just for Google, but for just the mentality that people have around building software and solutions. If it's happening at Google, I gotta think this is happening. This is a prevalent problem in just software development in general, not just at Google. The incentives are on the launch and not improving beyond launch. Something to learn from. It's interesting. It's I don't know that I mean, I look at someone like Jonathan Timianko, who has been building PeerShare for the last like 5 years. Right, he got into Bubble in like 2016, and he's just been building and staying focused on that one audience. And he's just every day he just feels like I don't even know if he considers himself like a developer or a startup founder. I don't think he puts any of those labels, assigns any of those labels to himself. He's just like he's solving the problem of empty peers and being able to share those and all of the problems that come, the complexities that come in with using someone else's doc when it's empty. It's a very cool. I did an interview with him. It's an interesting problem that he's solving with the Bubble app. Of course, he's done over $1 million in revenue total, and he's just cracking away at this problem every single day. And I always think to myself, "Damn, it's got to be such a slog." But he's invigorated by it. I think it's like being a detective. It's like you're getting to the bottom of something, and that to me is way more satisfying than build launch and jump and releasing and doing 10 launches in a year. There's got to be something more satisfying than, because you have such deep knowledge in a specific area that no one else in the world has. How cool is that? How cool is that to be able to say? It's like Jonathan could say, I know more about peer sharing, which probably wasn't even a thing before he came along. Or there are some other competitors, you said, but they're not doing it the way that he's doing it. But how cool is that to say, like, I know more about this than anyone else in the world, and to be able to say that with confidence, and to be able to put numbers behind that, like dollars and users. That's sick. That's sick. How are they going to catch up to him? Nobody's going to catch up to him. All right. Well, those are my thoughts on it. I will be back tomorrow at the same time. Actually, I'm going to do tomorrow stream at 1 p.m. Thanks for joining if you're listening, and I will see you tomorrow.